What are fractions? What are fractions? Fractions are pieces of whole numbers. And whole numbers are numbers that we use every day, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. We're used to looking at our everyday objects as wholes, like a whole pizza, a whole pie, one whole donut. As you can see here, our examples that we have listed are broken into fractions. Our pizza is broken into 1/4, 1/3, 1/2, and it's also showing a whole. Our pie is in different forms of halves. We have 1/2, 2/4, which is also half of the pie, or 4/8, which is also half of the pie. It's just cut up into different pieces of the whole. Our donut is half, 1/3, 1/4, 1/6, 1/10, and 1/100. The numerator is the top number and the denominator is the bottom number. Here we have 3/4 of a pizza. 3 is the numerator and 4 is the denominator. And our fraction is 3/4. If we have a whole pizza that's cut into 8 slices and we take one piece of that pizza, we will have 1/8 of that pizza. Let's talk about comparing fractions. Strategies. Strategies for comparing fractions. Some strategies that we can use for comparing fractions are comparing denominators and comparing numerators. If we have the same common denominator between our fractions, which in 2/4 and 3/4, 4 is the common denominator. So we're comparing 2 and 3. 2 is less than 3, so 2/4 would be less than 3/4, because if we have 3/4 of a whole, we have more pieces than if we have 2/4 of a whole. Common numerators, and then we can compare denominators. We have 2, 6, and 2/8. We have 2 in both of our numerators and our fractions. So we're going to compare 6 and 8. When we're talking denominators and we have the same numerators, 6 is going to be greater than 8 because it's a bigger part of the whole. Use half as a benchmark to compare our fractions. When we have 2/6 compared to 6/8 and we write out a number line, we can see that 2/6 falls before 1/2 and 6/8 falls after. So that would make 2/6 less than 6/8. We can change one denominator to match the other. So when we're comparing 2/5 and 3/10, we would take the 2 and multiply it by 2, and the 5 to multiply it by 2 to give us 4/10. It's easier to compare 4/10 with 3/10 to see that 4/10 is greater than 3/10, making 2/5 greater than 3/10. We can find a common denominator between our fractions. So when we're comparing 4/6 and 3/4, we're going to have to change both of our fractions to find a common denominator. The common denominator will be 24, so we will have to change 4/6 into 16 over 24. We would multiply our numerator and our denominator by 4. We'd have to change 3/4 into 18 over 24, and we'd have to multiply our numerator and our denominator both by 6. So then that would give us 16 over 24 compared to 18 over 24, and we can see that 18 over 24 is more. So that would give us 4/6 is less than 3/4. There's some common misconceptions when comparing fractions for students. A common misconception is the denominator is bigger, so it's a bigger fraction. So a student would look at 7/12 and think that it would be bigger than 5/8, and this is not true. 5/8 is actually bigger than 7/12. The size of the fraction depends on the number at the bottom, the denominator, and you can ignore the number at the top, the numerator. So a student would look at 1/4 and 7/8, and they may think that because 8 is greater than 4, that 7/8 would be bigger than 1/4, and that is not true. 1/4 is bigger than 7/8. Thank you for watching my presentation. I appreciate it, and you can go to the link provided in my resources to see the Florida State standard that my information was based on. Thank you.